Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever been made to feel invisible by someone who claimed to love you, stick around. This one's for you. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't even close it all the way. It drifted open behind me like the silence she used to give me for days at a time. Careless, cold, empty. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the one who had to apologize for everything. You know what's insane? She cheated and still thought I'd chase her. Thought I'd curl up like a kicked dog and beg her to stay. But I didn't beg. I disappeared. And let me tell you exactly how I did it. Step by step. Because maybe someone out there needs the blueprint I never had. It started with a suitcase. Hers, not mine. Bright red, wheels half broken, zipped like she was rushing. "I need a break," she said over her shoulder while stuffing clothes into it like a getaway car was waiting. Time to clear my head. I'm going to Renee's. She wasn't going to Renee's. I knew that. Everyone but me probably knew that. But I stood there, nodding, arms limp at my sides like a wind-up toy out of juice. She expected me to say something. Anything. Instead, I just watched. I watched as she packed the same perfume she wore on our first vacation. I watched as she hesitated before taking off her wedding ring. Not because she felt guilty, but because she didn't want tan lines. She left that evening. Waved from the car like she was heading to book club. She didn't know I had already seen the texts. Didn't know I watched her whisper laugh into her phone every night when she thought I was asleep. Didn't know I'd followed her once. Not out of suspicion, but because I missed her and thought maybe I was the problem. That night, I saw her kissing someone else outside a cafe. Not just a kiss, the kind of kiss you give someone when they own you. Passionate. Deliberate. The kind she hadn't given me in years. I didn't confront her. Didn't storm in. I went home. Fed the cat. Cried in the laundry room so she wouldn't hear. And then I waited for her to lie to my face again. Which she did with impressive ease. So when she left with that suitcase, thinking she was running to someone new while I stayed back broken, I made a different choice. I erased myself. I canceled my lease, which was in my name. Sold the furniture she always said looked too old man. Took my savings. Bought a cheap used car off a guy on Craigslist. And drove 780 miles south. No warning. No goodbye. No, we need to talk. I changed my number. Deleted my socials. Even left the keys to our apartment in the mailbox, like some ghost making a final peace offering. And you know what happened next? 2 weeks later, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. It just said, "Where are you? This isn't funny. Come home. Please." She had no idea how fast the silence would hit her back. And that's when her unraveling began. The strange thing about disappearing is how light your body starts to feel once you let go of being someone's emotional punching bag. It's not immediate, no. The first few days, I kept checking my phone like a dog waiting at the door, half hoping she'd text, half hoping she never would. And then, after the third day of silence, I realized something terrifying. She really didn't care. Or at least, she didn't think I would actually leave. That was her mistake. She thought I'd stay on standby forever, the dependable background noise to her main character drama. But I wasn't a footnote anymore. I was gone, vanished, out of range, out of sight, out of whatever narrative she was rehearsing with her new boy toy. I settled in a sleepy little town with a name you've probably never heard. Ashwell Grove. It's the kind of place where the general store still sells jawbreakers in a glass jar and everyone knows if you sneezed during church last Sunday. I rented a room above a garage from an older man named Morris who didn't ask questions. Just handed me a key and pointed to a shelf of towels like I was some long-lost nephew. I told him I needed quiet, and he told me he hated noise. It worked. At night, I'd lie awake and wonder if she was searching, if she had even noticed how fast I'd gone. But deep down, I knew she had, because just before I cut off my old email, I got a final message from her. One that clung to my chest like frostbite. "Are you really doing this?" it said. "You're being dramatic." That was the last line she ever wrote me. Dramatic. Like I hadn't spent the last 6 years of our marriage quietly suffering her moods, her affairs, her silence. Like I hadn't washed blood off the bathroom floor when she had a panic attack and cut her wrist on a broken perfume bottle, and never told a soul because she begged me not to. Dramatic. I guess that's what you call someone when they finally stop accepting your garbage. I deleted the email. That was the day I officially became nobody. I got a new phone. I picked up work helping an old guy named Eldridge at his hardware store. It was quiet, repetitive, and involved more conversations about screws than I'd like to admit. But it was something. Something that didn't involve waking up to the sound of someone whispering on the phone while pretending you didn't exist. And weirdly, that kind of peace starts to rebuild you. But here's the part that'll make your jaw clench. About 3 weeks in, Morris knocks on my door one night holding a printed letter. No return address. Just my name, printed in handwriting I knew too well. Hers. I took it with shaking hands and locked the door behind me. I didn't want to open it, but curiosity is cruel when your heart hasn't healed. I unfolded the paper slowly like it might burn me. It was only a few lines, written in rushed, uneven handwriting. I know I messed up, but you don't get to vanish like that. We had years, Clive. You owe me a conversation. Please don't embarrass me like this. I can't sleep. Just, please call me. I read it 3 times. Not once did she say she missed me. Not once did she say she was sorry. She only said I owed her something. She was more worried about how I made her look than about what she did. And that right there was the final flicker of the fire that had been burning in me since she walked out that door. I folded the letter, placed it in the sink, and lit a match. I didn't watch it burn to look cool or poetic. I burned it because it was my version of closure. Ugly, petty, quiet closure. And in that silence, I finally started to breathe. But I should have known that was only the beginning, because the real storm didn't hit until she showed up in person. And what she brought with her nearly ruined everything. It happened on a Wednesday. Quiet, overcast, the kind of day when even the birds seem hesitant to make noise. I was behind the counter at Eldridge's hardware store, pretending to sort washers while secretly just enjoying the stillness. I had almost convinced myself that Lila was another life, like a strange book I once read and barely remembered the ending to. But then, just after noon, a blue SUV pulled into the gravel lot across the street. A familiar one. The same one I'd spent hours maintaining while she pretended to be too tired to drive anywhere with me. It felt like seeing a ghost, except this ghost wore sunglasses and had freshly straightened hair. I ducked instinctively like a coward, hid behind a rotating display of gardening gloves. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped a pair of pliers. Eldridge looked over and raised an eyebrow. "You okay, son?" he asked in that dry voice of his. I didn't answer. I just peeked through the slats in the blinds like a man on the run from the law. She stepped out of the SUV slowly, almost theatrically. Her heels tapped the gravel like a countdown. She looked around, squinting at the building like it offended her. I hadn't told anyone where I was, not even my own mother. So how had she found me? My stomach twisted. Then I saw it, Morris. He was coming out of his side door, waving politely, that damn neighborly charm pouring off him like syrup. She had charmed him. She'd asked him. And Morris, thinking she was a lost wife chasing down her sweet husband, probably told her everything. I backed into the storeroom and closed the door, breathing like I had just sprinted a mile. I felt humiliated, and I wasn't even sure why. Maybe because I had built something peaceful here, and she had just marched back in like she had a right to drag it all into the mud. I waited. 15 minutes passed. Then a soft knock on the doorframe. Not the store door. The storeroom door. "Clive," she said softly. Just my name. Nothing else. I didn't answer. She knocked again. "Please, just talk to me." I opened the door a sliver and saw her standing there with her arms folded. But her expression wasn't angry. It was confused, almost defensive, like she was the one who'd been abandoned. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her if she honestly believed she could come back after wrecking everything and act like we just needed to talk it out over coffee. But I didn't say a word. I just stood there, like a statue made of heartbreak and anxiety. She sighed and pulled a manila envelope from her bag, placing it on the nearby shelf like a hostage negotiator dropping ransom. "You left before I could say anything. You think I'm the monster, but you just disappeared. No warning. No goodbye. You think that was fair?" she said, voice rising. I wanted to laugh. Fair? Did she really want to use that word? She didn't stay long. She left the envelope and walked out, heels clicking like punctuation marks on my nerves. I didn't touch it at first. I just stared at it like it might explode. But eventually, curiosity clawed harder than pride. Inside were photos. Dozens of them. Me and her. Old ones. Vacations. Birthdays. Even a stupid selfie of us brushing our teeth together from years ago. At the bottom was a note in shaky handwriting. This doesn't fix anything. But I need you to know that I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I stopped feeling loved. I waited for you to fight for me, but you just stopped trying. I found someone who made me feel visible. Maybe that makes me awful. Maybe you don't care. But I still dream about you. Every night. I sat on the floor of the storeroom, surrounded by those frozen memories, and I cried like I hadn't cried since my dad died when I was 15. Because as twisted and selfish as her words were, a part of me believed her. And that made it so much worse. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that I wasn't alone anymore. There was someone else now. Someone who had nothing to do with romance, but who was about to change everything I thought I knew about what came next. And Lila? She wasn't ready for what I had planned. The thing is, I hadn't meant to meet anyone. That's not how this was supposed to go. When I disappeared, I wasn't trying to reinvent myself or start over. I wasn't even trying to heal. I just wanted distance. Physical, emotional, mental, from the humiliation, from her breathless laughter as she slipped out the door with her gym bag, from the image of that other man's hoodie draped across her shoulders like a flag of conquest. I wasn't looking for connection, but sometimes connection finds you, especially when you've been hollowed out enough that even a whisper of kindness feels deafening. Her name was Erin. She was in her late 40s, wore reading glasses on a chain around her neck, and ran the flower shop 2 doors down from Eldridge's. She always smelled faintly of eucalyptus and candle wax. The first time we spoke, I was returning a socket wrench. I made some lame joke about how I was the least handy man alive, and she didn't laugh, but she smiled in this slow, sideways way that made me feel seen without feeling exposed. We started talking more. Not flirting, talking. Really talking. I told her about my panic attacks, about how I'd sleep in the car sometimes just to escape the silence of my own home, about how Lila used to say things like, "You're so soft, Clive," but not like it was a compliment. Erin didn't give advice. She didn't give pity. She just listened. And then one night, after she closed up shop, she handed me a paper bag with a single orange daisy in it and said, "For your windowsill, something to look at besides memories." I didn't fall in love with her. That's not what this is. But I did start to feel something I hadn't felt in years. Dignity. The kind of quiet, slow-burning dignity that lets you breathe again without apology. And that was the moment I realized I couldn't go back. Not ever. Because even if Lila cried, even if she begged, even if she confessed every sin and offered to start over, I knew she would never truly respect me. And I couldn't live like that anymore. So I made a decision. Final one. I wasn't just going to stay disappeared. I was going to lock the door behind me. I wrote Lila a letter. Not long. Not angry. Just honest. I told her I got her photos. Told her I read her note. Told her I understood more than she thought. And that maybe, in another world, we would have both been different people who could have saved each other. But that world wasn't this one. And I ended it with a single line. "I forgive you, but I don't want you back." I dropped it in the mailbox the next morning. No tracking. No return address. Just closure. But you already know nothing stays simple, right? 3 days later, Morris came knocking on my door again. Only this time he wasn't smiling. He looked rattled. Said there was a woman sitting in her car down the block crying. He didn't have to say her name. I already knew. I walked outside and saw her through the windshield, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing holding her together. I should have walked away. I wanted to walk away. But part of me, the weak, rusted, fragile part, needed to hear what she had to say. So I opened the passenger door and sat down without a word. She looked at me, eyes swollen, makeup smudged, mouth trembling like she wasn't sure what to say first. And then she whispered it, barely loud enough for me to hear. He left me. I didn't flinch. I didn't say, good. I just stared straight ahead. Then she added, he said I was never really his, that I kept waiting for you to come back. And he was right. That's when it hit me. She hadn't come for closure. She hadn't come for guilt or forgiveness. She had come because she had nowhere else left to go. And that realization lit something inside me that I never expected. Not rage, not even satisfaction, but something far more dangerous. Clarity. Because what I did next wasn't about revenge. It was about teaching her, once and for all, what it really feels like to be left in the cold. I sat there next to her in the car, letting the air between us grow heavier by the second. Her knuckles were white around the steering wheel, her breathing erratic like someone halfway through a panic attack, but too proud to show it. Outside, the wind picked up and rustled the bare branches overhead. But inside that car it was dead quiet, like we were suspended in some strange limbo between past and present. I didn't say a word. I wanted her to feel the weight of that silence, to sit in the very same absence she'd left me in for years. It was amazing how much power there was in doing nothing, just being there, motionless, while her reality crumbled. Eventually, she broke. Her voice cracked as she muttered, Clive, I made a mistake. I made a really big mistake. I didn't think you'd actually leave. I thought you'd get angry and fight for me. I thought you'd chase me. She paused, like even saying that out loud disgusted her. But you didn't. You disappeared. And I didn't know how empty that would feel. I thought I was the one with power. Her lips trembled. But it turns out, you leaving hurt worse than anything I ever expected. That would have been the perfect time for a dramatic speech, right? Something powerful. Something bitter. But I didn't give her that. I just leaned back in the seat and stared out the window. And finally, after what felt like an eternity, I spoke. I didn't leave to hurt you, Lila. I left because staying was killing me slowly. You cheated. You lied. You humiliated me. And you expected me to take it, to cry and beg and then accept whatever crumbs you threw back my way. And when I didn't, when I finally stopped orbiting you, that's when you noticed I was gone. She looked like she'd been slapped. Not because my words were cruel, but because they were true. And she knew it. Then she whispered something I never thought I'd hear. I'm not okay without you. Her voice was fragile. Honest. The kind of raw truth you only hear when someone's at rock bottom. I keep hearing your voice in the quiet. I check the door like maybe you'll come back. I keep thinking about the little things, the stupid cereal you liked, the way you folded your shirts, the way you made sure the curtains were drawn when I had migraines. I didn't appreciate any of it. Not until it was all gone. For a split second, something in me cracked. I saw flashes of our old life. Not the betrayal, not the cold shoulder, but the little slivers of warmth we'd once shared. I remembered the rainy Tuesday mornings, the inside jokes, the nights we'd lie on the living room floor just listening to music. And for that one breath, I almost felt myself lean toward her. But then I remembered something else. The night I watched her kiss another man, then come home and lie to my face like it meant nothing. The text messages she left open. The way she rolled her eyes when I tried to fix things. The way she smirked when I cried. I'm not your rescue plan, I said quietly. You're not here because you love me. You're here because he left. And because now you're scared of being alone. She didn't argue. She just started crying. Quietly. Ugly, uncontrolled sobs. But I didn't comfort her. I didn't reach over like I used to. I let her fall apart, the way I had, in silence, when she chose someone else over me. Eventually, I stepped out of the car without another word and walked back toward the shop. I didn't look back. Not once. Because in that moment, I knew I had finally broken free. But the real twist wasn't that I left again. It was what happened 2 days later, when the man she cheated with found me. And what he told me changed everything. 2 days passed. I kept waiting for my thoughts to settle, but they didn't. They just swirled, pulled between guilt and clarity, like debris in a storm drain. Part of me was proud of how I handled that moment in the car, how I finally held my ground after years of being emotionally bulldozed. But the other part, the weaker part, the Clive part, he still wondered if walking away from her as she cried was heartless. I didn't know anymore. All I knew was that I felt more alone than ever, even in freedom. Then, late Saturday afternoon, something happened that flipped everything upside down. I was closing up Eldridge's shop, flipping the open sign to closed and locking the cash drawer, when a knock came at the glass. A tall guy stood there, wearing a faded hoodie and that half-cocky, half-lost look that city guys get when they realize small towns aren't impressed by them. I almost ignored him, but something about his face, something weirdly familiar, made me unlock the door just a crack. "Clive?" he asked, voice uncertain. I stiffened. "Who's asking?" He exhaled sharply and ran a hand through his hair. "Name's Brandon. I was with Lila." I didn't answer. My heart jumped, but I kept my face still. I studied his expression, no smugness, no attitude, just exhaustion. "Look," he said, stepping back with both hands raised. "I'm not here to fight. I don't care about drama. But I figured you should know a few things, because she sure as hell won't tell you." Against my better judgment, I let him in. He didn't sit, just paced slowly between the displays, stopping every now and then to glance around like he needed to stay distracted. Then he said it, blunt, brutal, no build-up. "She lied to both of us." I blinked. "Meaning?" "She told me you were cold, controlling, that you had cheated first, that you never cared about her mental health or made her feel supported. And I believed it, all of it, because she told it so convincingly." He paused, then met my eyes. "Until I started noticing the way she talked about you. It was like she wasn't over you, not even close. And the deeper I got into it with her, the more I realized she wasn't with me because she loved me. She was with me because she was mad at you, like she was trying to punish you by loving someone else. Only it wasn't love, not even close." I didn't know what to say. My mouth went dry. I leaned back against the counter like my knees didn't want to hold me up anymore. He continued. "I broke things off a few weeks ago, told her I couldn't keep pretending. That's when she really snapped. Started blaming me for everything falling apart. Then she told me she was going to find you. Said she was going to fix it. Whatever that meant. I tried to stop her. Told her she was being reckless. She didn't care." He shook his head and finally sat down on the bench near the window. "I came here because I needed to know if she actually told you the truth. If you knew what she did, to you, to me, to herself." I stared at him for a long time. This man, this stranger, had slept with my wife. Had been the reason I had cried in a motel bathroom and thrown up in a gas station parking lot from the humiliation. And yet, I didn't hate him, because in that moment, I saw something terrifying in his face. Something I had seen in my own reflection 100 times. Regret. But not just for what he did. For what he allowed himself to believe. "I knew," I said quietly. "Not everything, but enough." Brandon nodded. "Then I guess I'm not the only idiot she fooled." He stood up to leave, but paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I think she's unraveling. She doesn't know who she is without you. That's not love. That's dependency. You don't owe her anything." And with that, he left. I stood alone in the dim shop, heart thudding in my chest, mind spinning with questions I didn't know how to answer. Everything I thought I knew about Lila, about what our story was, kept shifting under my feet like sand. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because after that conversation, I decided to give Lila one final message. Not a letter. Not a speech. Something she could feel. And when I handed it to her in person, the look on her face told me she finally understood what it meant to lose someone who used to worship the ground she walked on. The message I decided to give Lila wasn't a threat, wasn't some bitter monologue, and definitely wasn't an apology. It was something different, something quiet, final. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to argue about who hurt who more. I wanted her to experience the same kind of absence she had given me for years, not as punishment, but as revelation. I wanted her to feel what I felt the day I realized she'd stopped loving me long before she physically left. I went home that night and started collecting things. Not hers, mine. Things she had never noticed. A worn-out photo of us on our first road trip, folded into quarters and hidden in a book. A yellowed movie ticket from a date she forgot but I remembered. The tiny ceramic frog she once joked looked like me, which sat unnoticed on our bathroom shelf for almost a decade. I put them in a small wooden box, wrapped them in plain brown paper, and tied it with twine. It wasn't much, but it wasn't meant to be. The contents didn't matter. The weight of them did. I didn't mail it. That would have been easy. Impersonal. No, I wanted to hand it to her. Not for drama, not for closure, but because I wanted her to see me, one last time, truly and completely, and know it was over. When I showed up at her apartment building, she looked stunned. She opened the door in sweatpants, hair tied back, no makeup. The real Lila, not the version she tried to be for everyone else. She stood there blinking, like her brain needed an extra second to believe I was real. "I don't want to talk," I said softly. "I'm not here for answers. I'm not here to rehash anything. I just came to give you this." She took the package without speaking. Her hands trembled slightly as she held it, and for a brief second, I saw something in her eyes that felt eerily familiar. Panic. The same kind I used to feel when I saw her pulling away from me years ago, and didn't know how to stop it. She glanced down at the box, then back up at me. "What is it?" "Everything I kept," I said. "Everything you didn't know I was holding on to." She opened her mouth to speak. Maybe to apologize, maybe to beg, maybe just to scream, but I cut her off gently. "You don't need to say anything. There's nothing left to fix, Lila. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just free. And I think you need to learn how to live without someone being your emotional safety net. That's not love. That's convenience." She nodded, just barely. Her eyes were glossy now, like the words hit harder than she thought they would. But I didn't stick around to watch them spill over. I turned and walked away, down the hallway and out into the fading light of early evening. And this time I didn't feel the urge to look back. But as life would have it, the story didn't end there. The final twist came 3 days later, in a way I couldn't have predicted. Not in a letter, not in a phone call, not even in person. Came through someone else. Someone I hadn't seen in nearly a decade. Someone who had no idea what had happened between Lila and me, and yet unknowingly held the final piece of a puzzle I didn't even know was missing. And what he said to me that day didn't just explain the past. It shattered it entirely. It happened in the most ordinary place, the parking lot of a grocery store. I had just loaded a bag of cat litter into my trunk. Morris convinced me to adopt a rescue cat, who now runs my life, when I heard someone call my name. Not loudly, more like a half-surprised whisper. I turned around and there he was, Jacob, my old college roommate. We hadn't spoken since I got married. Life had pulled us in different directions, and truth be told, I always figured he'd forgotten about me. He hadn't. He recognized me instantly and jogged over with that same lopsided grin I remembered from our 20-something chaos years. We stood there talking for nearly an hour, leaning against our cars, catching up on a decade's worth of missed life. But it's what he said halfway through that shook something loose inside me. "Hey, I ran into Lila once, a few years back. She was at some networking thing. You know what she told me about you?" he asked. I tensed, bracing for something sharp. "She said she married the kindest man she'd ever met, that she didn't deserve you, that she was scared all the time, and instead of saying that, she just pushed you away." I blinked. "She said that?" He nodded. "Yeah. And she said the worst thing she ever did was make you feel invisible when all you ever wanted was to see her." Something cracked open in me. Not pain, not longing, just acceptance. Like hearing that final piece of the story released a pressure valve I didn't know was still turned tight. That night, I went home, fed my cat, lit a candle and opened my windows. I stood there looking out at the street, breathing in the quiet, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel haunted. I didn't feel like a man trying to rebuild what someone else broke. I felt like me, Clive. Just Clive. The guy who used to write post-it notes and fold laundry into perfect little squares. And now, the guy who got lost and found something better on the other side. His own peace. Lila never reached out again. I don't know where she is now, and to be honest, I don't need to. Because closure isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just waking up, looking in the mirror, and realizing the person you see is finally someone you're proud of again. Thanks for watching this journey unfold here on Reddit Confessions. If you've ever had to walk away from something painful, or someone who expected you to stay broken, drop a comment below and tell us what helped you finally let go. Was it a moment, person, a single sentence that changed your perspective? We'd love to hear your story. Sometimes the smallest moments lead to the biggest healing. And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it today. You're not alone. Not here. Not ever.